Hello and welcome to Repeat the Question. Today's episode will obviously be covering the Schmoedown Spectacular, but there's a special breakdown we're going to be having, which I think this shows the beginning of a new phase of the Schmoedown. But let me get to that after I get through the rounds as they played in terms of movie trivia. The first round was the first match was, of course, the Manager's Bowl between Tom Dagnino, Richie Hayberg, Jay Washington, and Emma Fife. Fife came out triumphant, although the match was as I predicted last match in terms of the questions were a little easier than expected. Now, I must say Jay Washington's consternation after the match was understandable for his treatment through the match in that one of his three-pointer questions, which was named how many James Bonds there's been, was thrown out. Well, Jay Washington guessed correctly how many Eon production James Bonds there have been, and he should have been given the answer for that because we're not counting Barry Nelson, which is in a TV thing, not in an actual movie, or David Niven in the parody James Bond movie. So they really should have just granted him the point there. It certainly shouldn't have been thrown out. Anyways, Dagnino actually almost came to winning, although Fife won through her 5-pointer, though semi-questionable, sort of, calling the monkey and the Cuba and the two strings specifically a baboon. It does look kind of like a baboon, but it's never specifically stated to be a baboon. So a little gray area there, but I don't think it's too hard to give her the point on that one. Either way, the questions were not overly difficult throughout. However, they still didn't perform beyond what you'd expect for these managers to perform, and Fife won, and in doing so revealed her player in her ring being Mark Andraco, though more on that later. Following that, we had the championship match between Hector Navarro and Jason Inman. As expected, both performed very well in these matches, but Inman really is, without the flawed Fatal 5-Way format, really is the Intergeekdom champion, truly. He has Star Trek, he knows Star Wars, he has enough of a base in Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter to be able to compete, and he has complete coverage of the comic book knowledge. And that he used well here to defeat Hector Navarro fairly soundly, actually. Not that Navarro didn't put up a fight, but it was not enough of a fight to take down Inman's Mastery, who, unless there's some truly hidden contender in the Intergeekdom, he'll probably hold on to the belt for some time. We then had the specialized Star Wars match between Ken Napzok and Sam Witwer, which was a special Iron Man match. It was a new, the reformed style that suited Sam Witwer's strengths, which is purely based on the knowledge without really much in terms of the gameplay having to deal with the intricacies of the game. It's funny because when those came in the last few minutes with the speed round, that's where he faltered a bit, and Ken almost took the victory from him 46-47. However, Witwer won in a close call, and where one might call fault in the naming of the question so late. But then again, they should have just added a rule saying if the question started being said, it goes before the timer runs out. But anyways, so Witwer won, but really Witwer was dominant throughout the game, and Ken just couldn't get caught up with him at any point. If Witwer missed one, usually Ken missed it as well. Witwer really just didn't miss though much at all. It is fair to say that Witwer truly is the champ in terms of knowledge, and it's fitting for him to win this one. And I wouldn't be opposed to putting this type of matchmaking for other players of truly great skill where the luck of the wheel is not going to be the thing that befalls their victory or just the randomization of the 5-pointer. That was all taken out here, and in doing so, Witwer won purely based on knowledge, purely based on skill. I don't think Ken could beat him in this match format anyways, particularly if they eliminated the speed round portion. He completely would have lost. If that was the case, Ken just isn't on that level of knowledge, which Witwer basically knows everything there is to know about Star Wars. He really doesn't miss much except for the most specific of information, specific for this, such as a particular standing for a name of a vehicle. Anyways, that's the match. I think Ken might come back if he got to play Witwer in a traditional championship match. I see he could beat him there just because Witwer doesn't really seem to care about the rules and ignores them so often. However, just if he ever fights him in an Iron Man match again, he'd simply lose. Following that, we had the championship team match between the Patriots and Above the Line, which unfortunately resulted in the Patriots' victory. I say unfortunately because the Patriots did play well. I will not hold anything against them. But Above the Line was dominant in this match and should have been able to beat the Patriots. They beat them in terms of the skill of the play. They only lost due to the 5-pointer, and their 5-pointer was harder. And frankly, it ended in kind of what'll sink you. If you ever took a test in school, you'd know this one, where you're taking a test and you answered one question, and then you go down and later on then you're sure it's another answer that you already answered a different question with that same answer, and you're like, are they really asking for the same answer twice? And that was the case here, where they were befooled twice by a Remember the Titans question in Denzel Washington and in the sports category, and it just seems probably second-guessed themselves on that idea that, oh, well, there was already Remember the Titans, they're going to ask 2 Remember the Titan questions, are they? But they did, and that sank them, which is unfortunate because they only lost by 1 point, which means the 5-pointer completely smashed what was going on through the rest of the game, which was above the line, truly did take down the Patriots without really any difficulty, just losing the 5-pointer, which means they could have easily beat them on most days if their 5-pointer was just as easy as the Patriots' 5-pointer was. It's an unfortunate thing when it goes down to that way and is go to luck. And again, this goes to what I was talking about in previous episodes, where the skills of the questions have changed, and when there's a really difficult question, that usually determines the match, because most questions aren't that hard these days in the Schmoedown, at least as they used to be. Following that, for some reason, the tournament actually was kind of oddly broken down, and considering one of the episodes apparently was filmed beforehand, I think they probably should have changed the orders up based upon that, because we have the last 2 matches were the least interesting, the least invigorating. The first being Team Action versus Team Top 10 grudge match, where Top 10 was dominant throughout the game. There was not a single moment where Top 10 seemed like they were going to lose Team Action, proving that their initial loss to Action was a fluke based on the wheel. Top 10 beat Team Action without any trouble, and Team Action seemed completely, they weren't even on the same line of thinking on this one, and lost easily, just as they did above the line. So they're a team that won based mostly on luck. They do have skill to back it up to a certain extent, but Top 10, as long as they're both in their heads in the right way, and Nost was certainly on point here, Roca was on point, they easily beat Team Action in a TKO. And then following that, we had an even less impressive match between Sam Levine and Christian Harloff, which was not the best match to end the game with, just because it was such a colossal defeat on Harloff's part, as Levine took him down every single round. Levine was on top, and Harloff just was eking out answers and seemed quite tired, I believe, from the previous matches, although there was a little bit of confusion between when this was filmed. I think this was filmed with the rest of the spectacular, and the team championship match was separate. But anyways, Harloff seemed like he needed a nap before he played this match, which he didn't have, and he just lost again and again. And for a championship match, this has been the second singles championship match that has been very disappointing. Harloff versus Merle was also very disappointing. This is Levine versus Harloff. I would love to get something like Ellis versus Merle again, or Roca versus Merle, or the 3-way. Those were real championship matches. These ones just, it's a tiresome match, unfortunately, and it is not the best way to end the game on by any means. However, as I had mentioned, that this is the new ending of the Schmoedown phase. You know, you had the first phase where it was something a little more casual, I'd say, in the old Schmoes days, where they had the Jeopardy round, and there wasn't really specific set for it. They just kind of sat on a couch and asked questions. Then we had the second phase, which was when it first came over to Collider, and it was started forming the rules a little bit better, and we had the sets, and so they were getting built up. The production value was increasing. Then finally now we have a new phase in the Schmoedown, and I'm not sure it's a phase I absolutely love. This is now we're going into the pure wrestling phase, which is now just as important, it seems, as the movie trivia phase. Yes, it was like a nice sprinkle on top, the wrestling storyline stuff before, but now they've become just as important as the movie trivia game as it was before. And I mean, you can enjoy that or you cannot enjoy it, but that is clearly the new direction of the Schmoedown, as when can be seen. And now storyline looking at is as important as movie trivia Schmoedown looking at, which is fine, although it's definitely a new direction, and I would say I probably preferred when it was sprinkled on top. Anyways, here's the new one, and we had some development in this regard. The first being Mark and Draco reveiling themselves to become part of Emma Fife's new stable of players, which also includes Sam Levine, although, Sam Witwer, which I doubt will matter all that much in the future. Witwer's only going to show up to defend the belt, and I doubt that'll happen more than once a year at best. And Draco, though, is Fife, and he has his #1 contender shot. I'm going to assume he's going to take it in singles, unless she has a teammate for him, which, you know, if she got Rachel Cushing for a teammate, that'd be quite the impressive play, but I'm not sure she will. And going against and it ought to be an interesting play, whoever he does go against. Anyway, following that, we had Robert Meyer Burnett kicked out of the Lion's Den, which I'll give a high point, probably in terms of the acting of the WWE wrestling segments, as Burnett would play the heel very well, right down to his ridiculous jacket, and him screaming about his greatness was actually pretty hilarious, and I gotta give Grant. I wish I would try to get more scenes like this, actually, is what I'd say for the wrestling segments. This one actually worked. It was funny, it was entertaining, it was enjoyable, it didn't go on too long, it didn't try to accentuate its importance too much. It was clearly, you know, a scene, but it was an enjoyable scene, so that was a lot of fun. Following that, we had the reveal of Miss Movies leaving the Misfits from Jay Washington and Stacey Howard to join Mike Kalinowski, former rival, former enemy, to form a new team. Natural enough storyline, again, because it allows them to create a new team. Through a storyline, works. Classic heel face turn, I think, unless Kalinowski's going heel as well. He certainly could do the super smug heel. Anyways, those two together makes enough sense. They sort of usually were the stronger players in their team, kind of, sometimes. There's a certain inconsistency. They can do okay in the team rounds. We'll see what happens next season. And, of course, here was the biggest action within the storyline that I would say actually perhaps made it take too far. So, it was Andrew Guy tackling John Roca after losing the match between Team Top 10 and Team Action. It was obviously phony, but treated seriously. I mean, treated seriously by Christian Harloff and a few other people. Because look at Matt Nose's face when that happens. He's loving it. He's clearly enjoying the act of it. But this might be going to a ridiculous extent where it's like, well, let's call in the authorities for this assault charge that Andrew Guy has received for being in the Schmoedown. I mean, just as this might be going too far in terms of the storyline to being a touch bit ridiculous and too much of the focus. Because then afterwards, all the interviews became about that tackle rather than actually winning the match. So, you know, in the future, I think it just needs a little more balance. Again, it's like, I'm fine with the storylines being like 10%, 20% even. But it shouldn't overwhelm the match, which was certainly the case here. Now, I would be remiss covering the tournament altogether, or sorry, not the tournament, but the spectacular, without getting into a few whiffs within it. So let's talk about the whiffs. Well, the first one would be old Hayberg's performance in general, which was just terrible throughout, and one questions if he's ever watched a movie. But anyways, he lost a particularly easy question of who played Vincent opposite Jamie Foxx in the 2004 Sterling Collateral, Tom Cruise. I mean, who doesn't know that Tom Cruise played that part? Notable role, against type, should have been gotten. He didn't know it whatsoever. Yeah, I don't know how you're that bad at movie trivia. Following that, we had Christian Harloff's whole performance is another nominee for with just throughout his performance throughout that championship match was a man who did not have enough sleep. But the true whiff of the spectacular was also from Christian Harloff, because hey, I heard some names of certain reactors and certain other podcasts about the movie Trivia Schmoedown, yet there was no mention. The actor used gold-blue colors like a certain other thing on the Schmoedown. Anyways, there was no mention of Repeat the Question. Not a single thought, not even just a random spoken word, but other people got mentioned. So I'm just pointing it out. That's all I have for the spectacular for now. I'm looking forward to a new year of the Schmoedown. It'll be interesting to see how the storylines go from here. Again, hopefully they don't overwhelm too much. My next show will probably be on analyzing whoever they choose for the overall winners and taking a look and offering my own opinion on that as well. So that's Repeat the Question for the Schmoedown Spectacular. Thank you for listening.